Hi, welcome to Reader's Corner. I'm your host, Doreen Barnes. In the studio with me to talk about his latest book, which happens to be Grin Reaping. Get the title. I'm talking with award-winning director, playwright. He's an actor. He's a college professor. I don't know. He just does it all. He does it all, really. And so today we're going to be talking about authors, and you are an author, so we'll be talking to Rod Carley. So how are you?
I'm great, Doreen.
Welcome to the program.
Glad to be here.
This is your third book?
It is my third book, yes.
Okay, so tell us, your other two books were?
Well, my first novel, I happen to have it right here, A Matter of Will. Here we go, shameless self-promotion. A Matter of Will was published in 2017.
Yes.
And the opening line, if I can remember my own writing, my opening line was, Will Crosswell's dream of being an actor shattered his father's dreams of him being a useful adult. And that kind of sets it in motion. So it was a story of basically a wannabe actor who becomes an actor. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of a picaresque rogue story, and he gets in one mishap after another. He's a bit hapless, and all my characters are a little bit hapless, right? And that's part of the fun, right? They don't quite get what's going on in the world around them, and they make these really poor decisions. And eventually, they might have some kind of enlightenment, or maybe not. So anyhow, in Will's journey, he makes these really poor decisions. His acting career turns upside down. He takes a job where he's scamming people as a telemarketer, and anyhow, he winds up eventually in AA, right? Mm-hmm. He hits rock bottom, and this very unconventional minister basically says to him, you know, you've got to find your mighty purpose. So he gets this idea, well, you know, maybe I'll go to divinity school because, you know, what you got to be a good actor to be a good minister, you think? So he gets this idea in his head, and he does, and he goes to a theology school, loosely based on training in Toronto, even out of church. And anyhow, while he's there in his sixth semester, they're given this assignment where they have to go on a 40-day fast in the wilderness, right? To mirror that, to see if they have the right calling, right? Now, as far as I know, that doesn't exist in any training theology program in the country, but it'd be kind of cool if it did, anyhow. So for Will, most of his colleagues, right, they're smart. Yes. They're going off to the Judea, they're going off to hot climates for their 40 days and 40 nights, but Will's thinking is, no, I really got to see if I have this. So he makes the decision to go to a remote outport in Newfoundland, Witless Bay, in the middle of the frozen winter. And so he goes there, and it's then what happens to him over those 40 days. Will he freeze to death? Will he starve to death? Will he survive? And in the end, will he or will he not find his mighty purpose? And along the way, he meets this Newfoundlander on the road to perdition named Billy Blight. And they have an encounter, and that encounter very much changes Will's life as he changes Billy's life. And then you find out if he actually, you know...
No more.
So we don't know if he gets his wings or not, right? So that was A Matter of Will. And And my second book...
Yes.
Kinmount.
Right.
And Kinmount came out in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So that was the pivoting novel where everything had to go online for launches and for, you know, book clubs and whatnot. And in Kinmount is the story of Dave Middleton. And Dave Middleton is a down-and-out Shakespearean director.
Yes.
Right? And anyhow, he gets this offer to go to Kinmount to direct this Shakespeare Festival production of Romeo and Juliet, right, in rural farm country, which he doesn't want to do, but he needs the money, and he goes. And everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and he suddenly finds himself this reluctant emissary of truth in a battle between artistic integrity and censorship.
Right.
And in the end, will the show will go on? And in the end, what it's on the bigger picture, it's about community. It's about surprising ourselves when we come in with preconceived notions, especially going into this rural community. Yes. And as he discovers just what it's really all about. So that's part of his journey of self-enlightenment. And, you know, in the dark times of COVID, it was a feel-good novel about us all sort of banding together. And we can do with that, right? And that's one thing I will get into, but all of my books, and we can talk maybe later why I like to write humor, why I write humor, but all of my books end with hope. And I'm a big subscriber of that, right? And so.
Alrighty, so tell us about Grin Reaping.
Grin Reaping. Okay,
Yes.
so Grin Reaping, it came out in 2022. And when I was in high school, right, I was a voracious reader and very curious, and still am. And I was a huge fan of J.D. Salinger, right? And reading his works. And my favorite book of his was Franny and Zooey, right? And wow, at one point I wanted to be an actor like Zooey, or I wanted to be like one of the brothers Buddy, or Seymour, a philosopher, or, all of those things. Just a writer, right, struck me.
Yeah.
But of course, those weren't the professions that were being encouraged by my high school guidance counselor at BCI. Anyhow, so, and one thing about the book, when Salinger's, and all his Glass stories, the Glass family, Salinger wrote those books to sort of create his own sense of family, because he only had one older sister.
Yes.
And myself, I have one younger brother, my brother Greg, who's great. But I'd always wished for sisters and never had it. I've got a lot of like what I call surrogate sisters in my life,
Yes.
but no blood sisters.
Right.
So the idea was I wanted to write a collection of short stories from the viewpoint of this character, Rudy Black, right? Where I could engage in my observational humor, because that's what I write, because I'm both a critic and a participant of the human condition. And I wanted to write these stories where he sort of translated the strangeness of his everyday life into a kind of home movie prose, right? With a really wry, self-deprecating wit, right? Never letting the truth get in the way of a good story, right? And that's part of who this Rudy Black character, Rudy Boyle rather.
Boyle,
Not
yes.
Black. Black was in its first incarnation. I always do that with myself, because eventually I changed it to Boyle in the final draft. So it's Rudy Boyle. Thank you. Anyhow, and so it's kind of the nature of his dilemma and the dilemma of his nature to be baffled by the world around him. So I had lots of topics I wanted to tackle, like climate change,
Yes.
Mortality, gender, all sorts of things, and of course Armageddon, because that's a light topic, right? So he became the mouthpiece for that. But in the course of writing it, my father had passed in 2017, and I was just starting to write the book a year and a half after that. And in the course of writing the first draft of Grin Reaping, my mother passed, and then two really, really close friends. Wow. So then the book shifted, and it still was everything I was saying there, what it's going to be about.
Yes.
But then I recognized, now this book is going to be a journey of Rudy Boyle as he then processes the grief of losing family.
Yes.
And from reading it, the book moves forward, and then we lose a parent, and moves forward, and other things happen, right? And you can sort of see how Rudy's changing his sense of humor through the course of the book. Right. Humor a lot is used, what we call, to do the heavy lifting, taking really serious topics, and it's a way to process them, right? And makes it easier for us to get on with life. So that was the point of writing it. And then that's where the title evolved into Grin Reaping, we got to give the boot to death, right? And if you look at the cover, that's what that little dog is doing in a very,
Yes.
very, very, very smart-ass
Yes.
kind of way. That little dog is, taking it out of death there a little bit. So
When I was reading, because it's 14 stories, I believe?
yes.
So when I was reading it, I found, and I came across and I really, really did like Uncle Irving. I liked him.
Yeah.
He was different.
He was different. I know.
Very different. But yet he had something to add to the story, and he did.
Yeah, I know.
He did.
Yeah.
So I liked him.
Is he-
Now and I'm not kidding. When I was reading this particular
Okay.
scene out of the book,
Okay.
with the pie, okay, I'm not kidding.
The Pie Hard disaster.
You were at you were writing about being in a cottage at Muskoka.
Yeah,
And
time sharing with
everything just goes wrong.
Everything goes wrong.
Everything.
We got forest fires going on, and we got Donnie the local who's obsessed with Kurt Russell, and yes, we got all of it.
I mean,
yeah.
everything did,
Yeah.
and I could see it unfolding. I'm not kidding.
Well, thank
and
you.
I laughed
Thank you.
and I laughed. And
Mission accomplished. Good.
you did.
Good.
You really, really did. And I'm telling you this because it has stayed with me.
Well, thank
And
you.
every time I see a pie, I think of your story.
Okay, hang on tight. That string got to cut into it, right? You got to hang in there. I know. Oh my gosh, I know. Yep.
Now, how much research do you do?
It depends on the book.
Okay, and there's a reason why I ask.
Now, for Grin Reaping,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to do a lot of research on the strike zone story because I was a college professor for
Right.
19 years, and I did go through 2 strikes, so that wasn't hard to draw from to write that one.
Okay,
right?
but what about the Botox?
Oh, but I did. Yes, I had to research the history of Botox.
Couldn't believe
yeah. I
that.
did the research. Isn't it odd?
Don't tell anybody.
I won't tell anyone. I know,
Because they
but
have to read it to
I know,
find
it's
out.
like Dr. Evil, right? What
Oh,
Botox is originally designed for. Crazy. And I did have to do research on that crazy David Icke and the lizard people and all those fanatics, right?
Yes.
I had to do a deep dive into that, like Rudy does.
Yeah, right.
And then only what happens with Rudy is he starts to get caught up in the, the whirlpool of it, and he's pulled and he's sucked in, and and that was the fun. I had starting to buy into it, right? With that, with the character buying into it, despite his rational.
Well, it was good. It was I really like that. And the other thing that I didn't realize that Saudi Arabia, do they really
Yes.
no, come on.
Okay, no word of a lie on that. When I was writing that story, right?
Yes.
Right? And I did a quick Google search of just, and there it was. It was a news story about them using Botox on these camels in this camel beauty contest to make their lips thicker. I guess it makes for a better spit. I don't know. But yes, and that's one of the hard things, because primarily I write satire, right? I make fun. I poke at the bear. I poke fun at institutions and people that deserve to be poked at. But it's getting harder for satire writers because the world is already a giant satire. I mean, that writes itself. It's so strange.
I know.
Right?
But, and the reasoning behind it was because of the beauty contest.
Yes.
Can you imagine a camel and a beauty contest
I know.
for camels?
I
mean,
know.
what?
I know.
Do they not have anything else to do?
That's the old adage, a lot of money and too much time on your hands. Yeah.
That was good. That was really good.
Thank you.
So there is research that is definitely done in your books.
Yeah, definitely. And,
Yeah.
and in those areas, I had to do that, right?
Yeah,
Because I wanted to go, and for the one where Rudy, after coping with another loss in his life, then starts to do a life of volunteering and philanthropy, there was actually, because I was living in North Bay at the time, and there's a wonderful, wonderful soup kitchen there called The Gathering Place. And I've done fundraisers each year, at Christmas time to support that institution. So I have volunteered there and worked there.
Yes.
For certain fundraising events. So that was all drawing from but a lot of it's drawn from my life, other people's lives.
Yes.
And then I throw it into a blender.
Yes.
And it's a mishmash, right? So people always say, "Oh, is that based on anyone you know?"
Of
I said,
course
"Well,
it
they're
is.
composites
Yes,
usually,
they
right?
are.
They're composites, right?
Right.
Like yes, and yeah." But writers always say, "You be nice to me, or you'll end up on my next book." but usually they're composites, right? And I think the thing about writing fiction, it's one of the great paradoxes, is that by writing fiction, you can actually tell the truth.
Yeah. It's freedom.
Yeah, and the truth comes out through these stories that you create, right?
You're right.